Hey, this is Marty, and welcome to Kicking with Computer Science. Today is part two of our swing tutorial. In part one, we created a basic game driver and added a game or a JFrame to it that essentially just builds a very simple window. Once you've got your main window built, you can add a panel to it. So today we're going to implement a JPanel. JPanel is just a swing component, which is a container for other components like buttons and text boxes, labels, stuff like that. So before I got going here, I've created a new class called a game panel. So here it is. So this game panel is actually going to extend JPanel. So extends JPanel, and we'll Control Shift O. And so now we've imported JPanel, and this game panel extends it. The reason we want to extend JPanel instead of just using it directly is we need to um, get access to a method called paint component. So let me just type it in here, protected paint component. So this is the paint component method, and the important reason we're doing this is we need to get a reference to the graphics object, the swing graphics object. And let's see here, paint component. Don't think it knows what a graphics object is. And we don't have, so what Eclipse is trying to tell us is we don't have a return type. So we'll just set that to void. Now you can see in Eclipse, it's nicely telling us that we're overriding the paint component method in the base class JComponent. So like I said, we need to get access to the graphics object, which is how you can do operations that are needed for a game, like drawing paddles or drawing a ball or drawing the center of the court, which we're going to do today. So we'll get back to this. We'll just add a to-do here, so we can remember to do it later. And I always like to format things with Control Shift F, and we'll save it. So now we have a game panel. Let me just grab this, and we're going to add the game panel to our driver, and we'll make it a private property of the driver. So game panel, and we'll just call it game panel. All right, so we have a game panel, and we want to instantiate it. So we'll, under our frame, we'll just say this dot game panel equals new game panel, and okay, and then like I said, this is extending the JPanel. So when you extend a class, you get the default behavior unless you override it. So we're getting all the JPanel default behavior except for the paint component method, which we can add some specialized code to. Okay, so one thing now that we've got the game panel, this frame I mentioned last time is the main window. You can add components to that frame. So now that we've created a game panel, we want to do an add, and we'll add the game panel. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it. Last time I noticed you couldn't see me actually hitting the run button, so I'll do it this way. Run Java app. And so we still have our frame, and our panel has been added, but you can't actually see it because it hasn't been rendered. Now that we've added the panel, let's go back to the panel class and we'll add some stuff to it. So we need to have a constructor, and we'll set the layout. So whenever you're adding um, swing component, or when you're adding a panel or a frame, you can specify a layout. A layout is just a way of organizing all the widgets or buttons or whatever you're adding to the container. So in this case, oops, didn't like that. The crossed out means it's been deprecated or no longer used. So I think we want to use set layout. Set layout, and then we'll say new border layout. So border layouts, we have to construct a new border layout. So again, Clips doesn't know about that, so we have to import it. So now we've got a game panel and we've set the layout. We also want to set the background color. So let's do that quickly. Set background color, and we'll use a constant color black because we're playing Pong and it has a black court. All right, so we've got, the next thing we want to do, we're going to add some buttons to the bottom. So we actually need another JPanel. So like I said, a JPanel is a container for other components. So a JPanel can contain another JPanel. So we're going to use this JPanel as our button to add a layer of buttons at the bottom. And we'll call it a control panel. So control panel equals new JPanel and control panel. And so this one, we're going to use the default layout, which is flow layout. And that just, when you add components to a flow layout, it just adds them in a row from left to right. So we have a control panel, and so we want to add that to our game panel. So since our game panel is this class, we do a this dot add. We want to add a component, and the control panel is the component that we want to add. Okay, so at this point we've created this game panel, we've set the layout, and we've added the control panel. I think I forgot one thing. When we add the control panel, we can specify where we want to add it, and we'll do border layout south. So south is adding it at the bottom. So one other thing we need to do is when we override the paint component, it's important to first actually call the base class paint component. So we'll do super, which will invoke the parent method for paint component. And so I think I want to run it at this point. So we now have a game driver, and we're adding the game panel and adding it to the mainframe. And so we can run this bad boy. All right, so now you can see that we've added the panel because that's what the black part is here. So we added the game panel, and so one thing that's interesting, we've added the control panel, but it doesn't actually show up, and that's probably because we haven't put any buttons on it. But before we do that, I just want to go back to this paint component. So I mentioned that we needed access to the graphics object. So what we want to do is add a center court line to our Pong court. So we'll do a set color white, and then we're going to create a line. So we'll do a draw line, and So I think what we want to do is define, let's just add some new variables that we haven't actually. So the frame width divided by 2, and the first, so we're making this in the center of the frame. So the first y coordinate will be 0. The second y coordinate is going to be frame height. All right, so we've got, and then the second x coordinate is just going to be frame width divided by 2. So we want to be halfway across the court. Okay, so that looks good, except for the fact we haven't defined frame width and frame height, so we can create local variable frame width, and same thing for frame height. Create local variable, and let's see if I can get this right this time. So the width is going to be 700, and I'll make height 500. And you notice that I'm kind of redefining frame width and height here, and I've also got it defined in the driver. So it would be much better to actually reuse these. So how would we go about doing those? Well, they're private right now, so we can't access them. For now, we'll just make both of these public. There's probably a better way to do that, but we'll get to that later. So now the game driver has 2 public constants called height and width. And so instead of basically hard coding this again, we can use these. So if we want to do that, we can pop height here and width. Oops, and I don't think we did that right because we need to reference the game driver when we do that. So we're referencing, there must be a width, and well, if I could only type. So now we're referencing the right width and height. So we're referencing this constant in game driver, and you can actually click on it, and theoretically it would take us there. I'm not sure why it's not, but let's just say it did. All right, so then and let's grab this again. So hopefully what we've done is added so we've overridden this paint component. We've set the graphics color to white, and we'll get rid of these because we don't need these locals anymore. And so we're drawing a line, and this should be the width divided by 2, so halfway across the court, and starting at y equals 0 and going to y equals height, which is 500. So let's go ahead and run this again. I'll get rid of the existing one and go back to our game driver. Not sure why Jerry's popping up, so we'll run it, and you can see we now have a court. So I think we'll wait to add the buttons, the control panel buttons, next time. So we've kind of got our pong court set up. We need to add some paddles, we need to add a ball, we need to add a scorekeeper, and the ability to start and stop and control the game. But that's it for now. I'll catch you next time on Kicking with Computer Science.